happening, everybody? And thanks again for joining us here on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale. And, of course, as always, the man sitting next to me, the one and only Freedom Filson.
How's it going, everybody? Yes, I'm back in studio after what seems like an extended break with the Christmas holidays, the New Year's holidays, hunting trips, backpacking up on the Mogollon Rim. Yes, I'm finally back I'm back at the Skeleton Studios, and I'm ready to just get 2020 started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's fun to take a break from it for a while, but then it's also nice to get back into a routine. Kids go back to school. I can start working 5 or 6 days a week instead of just hit or miss because of the holidays. I don't have to take up lights, take things down, to put up the tree, take the tree down. All kinds of in-laws coming over, traveling to in-laws' houses. I mean, I had 5 Christmases I had to go to. After a while,
First world problems,
yeah. After a while, it starts to wear on you.
That's why we've changed his name too. 100%. It's now Freedom Filson. Freedom with a PH.
Yeah, I don't know how I accumulate so many nicknames. It was Big Fizzy for a while, and now I've been given the moniker Freedom Filson.
Freedom Filson.
And so here I am.
I don't remember
alive and well.
But that's what it'll be from now on.
Let's tell everybody where we've been.
We have been in Arizona. For those that keep up with us on social media, we've been in Arizona. I guess I don't know if we've posted it to Facebook or not. I need to put the pictures out on Facebook, I guess. But all of them are on Instagram. But anyway, went to Arizona. We went and actually hiked into the Mogollon Rim area and stayed out there, spent a few days hiking around in that area. And we have some news for you that we will discuss about this monster trip, this monster hunting expedition after the break, when we get into the whole segment. But before we get into the wildness that was there, of course, like we said, we've made it through, and everybody listening here, I guess we've all made it through the holidays, and you and I was laughing off air. It does seem to take more out of you. The older you get, the more you're like, man, this is like work. It's what this whole holiday business is. Yeah. So it is going to be great to get back to it. We have got a few more toys in here so we can try to get this streaming thing going and get it worked out for us. But before we fire up with all that, I've got something to tell you, because I received emails about this throughout the year and of 2019, and people asking us and getting links and all that stuff sent to us. But there was a weird hum people were hearing. Not everyone, but certain people all reported hearing, and there was large numbers of these people, this hum, and not just here in the States, but worldwide. Mm-hmm. People could hear this sound, and nobody knew. It was like those sky sounds is kind of what it leaned into. Well,
right. This is a phenomenon that's been going. People have been talking about it for years. I know that there were several places up in Canada where people were hearing it, down here in the lower 48, as well as, like you said, other parts of the world. Sometimes people would claim it was like machinery reverberating off the sides of buildings or mountains and things. But, and there's been a lot of theories about what's causing this. Could it be, the HARP? Remember up in Alaska, they had this gigantic antenna array.
Yes, yep.
That they claim controls weather patterns. And I know even recently with us kind of feuding with Iran, apparently right next to 2 of their nuclear development facilities, there's been earthquakes. And people are already claiming that it's us doing that we're using HARP to trigger earthquakes, kind of like you see in a sci-fi movie. Whether that stuff's real or not, I don't know, but these anomalous sounds, this churning sounds that people are hearing just coming out of the sky is a bizarre anomaly.
Well, and I don't know that this actually explains all of those throughout all of these years that we've heard, but this comes from Live Science. And basically what it is talking about is Laura Giggle wrote this, and what she's written here says, mystery of weird hum heard around the world is solved. They're talking about seismic noises. They believe that this hum was most likely caused by an unusual geological event, and it says it was rumblings of a magma-filled reservoir deep under the Indian Ocean, that they were an unconventional geolithic birth announcement is basically what this was. What they're saying now is, and this is pretty cool, that for months these sounds have been around the world. Like people have reported hearing these sounds. And then right after that, right between Madagascar and Mozambique in the Indian Ocean, a new underwater volcano was born and pushed up out of the sea floor. Yeah, a new one.
Was creating a new island?
It was underwater, it was creating a new volcano as it slowly bubbled up.
I got
the noise. It was kind of more like a pressure release is what this is. So this says right here that the new findings provided a detailed 1-year timeline of the newborn volcano's birth, which would make any mother, in this case, Mother Earth, proud. And it says that this reservoir is about 20 miles or 35 kilometers under the ocean floor that pushed its way up until it came out of the sea floor. So I wonder. And
that's what's responsible for the sounds?
For the sounds is what they're saying. So I'm guessing off of what you can read and what you can make out here. You're looking over these charts with us. All this stuff here as it's going. I'm assuming that the sound is like squeaking air, like coming out of a tire. Like certain tires could squeak like with an air leak, right? Because of the way the rubber's posted just right, anything like that. It sounds like this hum might have been just the noise coming from the Earth's crust as it was doing. Now, why they don't all do that, I don't know. But what it is it, like it said, it's this strange anomaly, and this one happened to make a lot of noise. Now, they say that they've had it happen in the past, too, but not quite at this sound. And you can go through and read in the forums and find a bunch of stuff out about it. But apparently, like I said, this isn't covering all of them. This is just saying what happened here to the most recent one. I think people started reporting a lot of the noise, at least the emails we got, was about summertime, so May or June when it started. So I believe that's about around the time that we started noticing it.
And I guess the eruption all the way over there near Madagascar, you could still hear sounds over here?
That's what they were talking, yes,
maybe
around the world.
The shifting of the tectonic plates. Well,
a
fault
if it's
lines.
all one piece, like we're talking about giant plates like you're talking about, and you run anything against it, like on the edge of a table, you can drag a piece of sandpaper along the edge of a dining room table and you can feel it across the other end of it because you can feel that movement. So maybe that's the way the sound also carried.
I wonder if earthquakes make noise. I mean, obviously the things that are toppling over are creating noise, but I'm saying if you were standing in the middle of a prairie and there was a large earthquake, would it make any noise?
Not unless there was friction in order for it to rub to create sound. If it was the whole thing moving, I don't think that there would be any noise because I picture it like Jell-O. If you shake Jell-O, Jell-O doesn't make noise unless there's something off to make it make noise.
I got you. I would like to experience an earthquake. Now, I wouldn't want to be in a city where stuff could fall on me, but if you're in the middle of an open field, would it kind of just
I would love
be entertaining?
Yes, I would love to see what it's like out in the middle of West Texas. I'd like to be standing out in the middle of past Van Horn and then have that.
You don't have to worry about anything falling on you.
Yeah, nothing falling around.
You can get we saw land for sale out there pretty cheap, like $600 an acre.
Yeah, you could buy 20 acres for $18,000. Yeah. Now,
of course,
I don't know
you
where
can't grow anything on it.
Nothing grows. You could raise rattlesnakes.
Yeah.
You probably have a bumper crop of them bad boys going out there. But yeah. So I'm assuming that that's, like I said, it's not covering all of the crazy stories of these wild sounds that people hear that sound like trumpets. And like I've discussed with the machinery that I've heard doing it here that was ours, and we've been called in on before at the city for that. But it at least explains what some of the sounds could be Mother Nature. And it's like we've discussed, and even people had sent us the videos of the two bobcats talking to each other. Whereas if you heard that out you wouldn't know what it was because it doesn't sound like a bobcat. Just like that. You didn't know a volcano made noise as it was coming to life, but apparently it does.
Right. Tobias Wayland over at the Singular Fortean Society says that he was...
Which has an awesome name, by the way.
Right.
Tobias Wayland. That's... I wonder if he's involved with the alien... No, yeah, that's the Wayland Corporation too, isn't it? And Aliens?
I don't know. Maybe it could be a pseudonym, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, Tobias was recently contacted, he claims, by a woman wishing to report a sighting she had back in 2001 of, get this, Cam, not one, but 4 winged humanoids.
Awesome.
That she saw near the town of Berwyn, Illinois.
Whoa. In Illinois?
Yeah. She said that one of her sons, who's a big fan of small town monsters, and Seth Breedlove's work, told his mother that she needed to watch the film Terror in the Skies. And after watching the Chicago Mothman portion of that film, his mother decided that she wanted to come forward and disclose her sighting to an investigator. This is what she claims. She says, in 2001, we were in my backyard in Berwyn, Illinois, which is next to Cicero, just outside of Chicago. We were having a picnic in the backyard. It was about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Now, it scares me to even talk about this because I don't want to bring bad juju on myself. She said that over the phone, she said, I was in the backyard cleaning up and I looked up in the air. It was a beautiful moonlit night, just a couple of days before 9/11. And the moon's out, but it's kind of partly cloudy. I've got some tiki torches in the backyard and those really big balls that light up like half a block. I'm by myself. I was outside cleaning and gathering stuff off of the table, and I see 4 humongous, they looked like humongous people. They looked like men, and they were all black, and they had big wings. I mean, huge wings. The wings were not feathery. They were more like bat wings or demon wings. I looked at them, and there were 4 in a row. They looked like they were standing up as they flew. They were very muscular. They were big. And I looked up and I went, oh my God, what the blank is that? Now, the woman claims that she's sensitive, meaning she's kind of like a medium, right? She's always had these abilities and gifts, she calls them, to see things that other people can't. She claims that she's never understood these sightings that she's had over the years, but she's very sensitive. We talk about this all the time, that we know people that just somehow are more sensitive to things. And I think that those people see more paranormal things than the average Joe. I'm oblivious to everything. I don't notice anything. My wife's constantly getting on to me because I don't remember where I put my keys, where my hat is, where my wallet is, what I did with the SD cards. I mean, like, I'm a mess. I'm like 10-second Tom. I can't remember where I put my stuff. I know Alzheimer's is going to get me one day. Not too far off. Anyways, the woman said that these things that she saw in the sky, they didn't hear her. They were too high up to hear her. But 2 of them, she says, looked directly at me. And when they looked at me, they had red eyes. I freaked out because they looked directly into my eyes. Well, I ran into my house. And I was starting to cry because I was freaking out. Now, my cousin, who has since passed away, wanted to know what's wrong. What happened? What's the matter? But I was too afraid to speak. I just wanted to go back outside to make sure that they were gone. I went out there, and they were gone. They never came back. I never saw them again. I was afraid for weeks after that to even go outside. The woman claims that this was not my imagination. I don't do drugs, and I don't drink. This blew my mind, completely blew my mind. I had told some people at work, but of course they laughed at me. They taunted me. They thought I was crazy. To this day, I know what I saw. I won't let anyone try to manipulate my story or tell me that I was hallucinating. So once again, this is near the city of Chicago. This woman was unaware of this Chicago wave, as they called it, until her son implored her to go watch the Small Town Monsters movie, Terror in the Skies, where Seth and his team point out, all about the Chicago Mothman. And, Lon Strickler over at Phantoms of Monsters, he's been documenting this thing.
Yep.
There's hundreds of sightings in and around the town of Illinois. What these are, people think it's the Mothman. Other people think it's some other harbinger of death. It's an omen. Some people think it's extraterrestrial. Other people think it's demonic. I don't know. But this woman claims that she saw it. 4 of them, just directly above her house while she was cleaning up in the backyard around 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
I'd have to be cleaning up.
What could you confuse that with?
If I saw something like that in the sky.
I'd be cleaning up my shorts.
Yeah, they'd be all in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, for
real.
real.
To throw those away.
So my question is twofold. Number 1, what the hell are they seeing? And number 2, why is it in and around the area of Chicago? I mean, there's sightings all over the place, but there's been a lot in and around the town of Chicago just in the last 3 years. Yeah.
Is packed with them.
I wonder, I don't know.
I keep waiting. It's all, you hate to say it, but it really is that way. It's like everyone that's involved or that knows anything about Mothman is waiting for that next shoe to fall. You're just sitting here like, what's coming? Like something's coming. There's no way this is going to be good. Like you talked about, it was known as a harbinger of just bad things to start with. So it makes you wonder, but hey, maybe Mothman's changing his ways. Maybe Mothman's like, hey, I'm trying to bring y'all an early spring. Get y'all out of the cold, man.
He's like the paranormal Puxatawny Phil, where instead of seeing the groundhog, you see the Mothman.
Which I think's what we had going on down here, because one day it's cold, the next day it's 70, then we have tornadoes, then it snows, and then it's back to, because we had like 3 of them touch down around within 20 miles of us.
Yeah, it's been wild.
And then it turns off to be in the 20s, and then it snows like the day after the tornadoes hit. Yeah, it's been a very, very strange week of weather.
Life in general has been odd the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
right? That's what I'm talking about. I just want to get back into normalcy.
I just need something normal. Well, here's something that's not normal, but then it's becoming that way, I guess you could say. From Discover Magazine, Nathaniel Scarping actually wrote this, and it's a really good article about Denisovan research. It says that they've revealed that early humans were more complex than we thought, which, of course, everyone listening to this probably pretty much believes that. We didn't need this article to tell us, but he did a great job because it says back in 2008, when they first found them in that Siberian cave, they went through there. That was just a little branch of the family tree, and they had never really found much after that. So for a decade, they were only known for one site. And on that site, this is what was found, and we've discussed it before. It was a finger bone and a few teeth from 4 individuals. And because of those, we were able to extract DNA. Well, jump forward now to 2019, and there's been a series of discoveries written here. It says, revealed our evolutionary kin in greater detail than ever. So what they have found out is that the Denisovans occupied a much more diverse, and even right here, sometimes extreme environment spread over much of Asia. So they show here on this map that the Denisovan cave, which was there in Russia, was discovered in 2008. All right. Mm-hmm. Then there was the Bashia cave in China, which the fossil was confirmed in 2019, which is south, of course, of Russia. Then you go yet south of it there's found these bone shards and multiple DNA lineages. In 2019 was when it was confirmed in Indonesia and in Papua New Guinea. And they use a jawbone. Now, this is what's written. Now, they found skull fragments, of course, and stuff like that, but they get into this jawbone talk. But here's what's interesting. It says, writing in Nature in May, a separate team announced that a partial mandible or jawbone found in the cave of the Tibetan plateau that come from Denisovia. Well, it was the first time a Denisovan had been found outside of that cave, and at around 160,000 years old and about 2 miles above sea level. It revealed that archaic humans lived at extreme altitudes long before our own species did. It says the discovery also cleared up a modern mystery. Scientists have known that modern-day Tibetans possess a gene inherited from Denisovans thousands of years ago, when our species interbred. Now get a load of this. The gene is known as EPAS1 or EPAS1, and it alters the body's production of hemoglobin, a protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen and helps them survive at high altitude environments. However, because the Denisovan cave is not at high altitude, researchers had puzzled over why individuals living there would have been adapted for the high life. Well, the discovery of this Tibetan jawbone explains everything now. And it also expands the known territory of these Denisovans by more than 1,000 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, more than 1,000. So they go deep into the fact of how valuable this DNA is and what they found and how much it's growing. But basically that the fact that this Denisovan gene is what helps modern day peoples today exist at such high altitudes.
Huh.
Which is wild that it come. So it makes you wonder, like they said, how much longer were they? Now it says here that in April in the journey, there's a journal, which I've actually seen on Kyle's dining table. It's called Cell. Its researchers described a new wrinkle in a Denisovan story. It says, by scanning the genomes of 161 people living in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, the scientists isolated surviving fragments of the Denisovan DNA. The team says that it found strong indications that what we call the Denisovans might actually have been 3 distinct lineages of archaic human, spread from Siberia to Southeast Asia, that they found the signatures of 2 separate Denisovan populations in the DNA from people in Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, and both differed from the Siberian Denisovans.
See, that's what the Denisovans, like you were talking about,
yes,
were discovered, back in like 2008, the first site. Yep. And Andrew Collins, we need to have him on. He's written a book called Denisovan Origins. Very interesting. What they're thinking now, because of this Denisovan find, is that Neanderthals and Denisovans, they split. about 640,000 years ago. Prior to that, they thought that it was just Neanderthals. They didn't realize that there was these branches, and now you're talking about, it looks like it's split 3 ways.
Off of them.
So there's that. I think that's what we're finding. Much different than what we were taught when we were coming through high school and things. Is it appears that there's lots of splits, which is another curious case for like Sasquatch and things like this. Anna, the Almosti and stuff, is she could have been like a Denisovan who just lived in the cave. This was back in the 1940s or 1930s when the story of Anna, the villagers there had a couple children with her and stuff. I don't know. Was she mentally handicapped and was also just like a drifter, homeless person, or was she truly like a Denisovan, an Almosti, a Yeti, half woman? Who knows? But and it's very interesting because when we were coming through school, it was always the date of how long human beings, as we know them, have been around. Now it's going further back. Denisovans were very much like you and me.
Yes.
And very intelligent, very advanced. So I'm really interested in these Denisovans. Could the Denisovans have been responsible for things like Göbekli Tepe? I don't know. It's possible. I know that.
Not until we find maybe their remains and can genetically tie something to it. Like if we ever find people buried there. Things like that, where you can be like, oh, wait a minute, there is a whole section. It's not just like a random one showed up. Like there's a whole group of them buried here. And my hopes is this, when it comes to Göbekli, not to cut you off, but my hopes for Göbekli Tepe is this. As they continue to unearth, they end up finding burial sites, and that they find burial sites of a full section of Denisovans and a full section of Neanderthals and a full section of the giants and
That'd
a full
be cool.
where it's all the peoples were together one last time.
That'd be cool.
How crazy would that be that you would find them all like that?
And just like the article was talking about how advanced they are, we were taught that any culture from 12,000 years ago were just hunter-gatherers, that they didn't know a whole lot. The only thing they had mastered is crude stone tools and fire.
Yeah.
But now sites like Göbekli Tepe are showing that even 20,000 years ago or older, these people were advanced.
And the jewelry
Very
they
advanced.
found from the Siberian caves.
Absolutely.
The jade
There's
stuff.
places all over, non-Medal,
Yeah.
places like that, where these people, they were seafaring people. They were, going across the oceans. They were fishing in deep sea fishing. They were building these gigantic cities or places of gathering that matched that marked the summer solstice, the winter solstice. They knew how to carve. There's carvings of animals that don't even exist in that area of Göbekli Tepe.
High relief.
Which is showing that, there were people traveling there and telling them about who knows what, like a 3-toed sloth, which is nowhere near Turkey. Yet they're but they're carved there. So,
there.
This is what I find so interesting is I believe, much like Graham Hancock talks about in all of his books, and this is something I was not aware of when I was younger until around 1995 or so, is that there probably was another civilization here, really advanced, long before us.
Yes.
And it's just for whatever reason, there's just not much left, so people deny that. You always think of from Neanderthal to where you are today as one steady progression, right? Where I think in reality, life is ups and downs, valleys and mountains.
I think it's just like today's family tree, that when you do some research in your family tree and people are doing this 23andMe and they're finding out all of these different, it's not like you come from one country and that's it. That's all your DNA is you're 100% European,
right,
or 100% African or 100% Asian. There's always these mixes. And I think that our family tree, as far as our human tree, the humanoid tree, is the exact same way. I think if you were to look at it, there's branches twisted.
Oh, yeah, I
and
agree.
it comes off. It looks like a spider's web.
And it's because
we just happen to survive.
And it's because of this technology that we're able to see that everybody is multicultural. Where before it was just word of mouth. You would say, well, we're Irish, we're Italian.
Yeah.
But what does that really mean? You can move from Armenia to Ireland. And then what do you then claim to you have a couple kids and you're like, we're Irish or not really?
Well, 3 generations later, they're fully Irish. And then they moved to the States. Yeah, my family come from Ireland. Actually, your family's Armenian.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I think people are from all over, right?
You know what you are? At the end of the day, this is what you are. You're an earthling and you're human. And that's it. At the end of the day, that's all we are. We're all on this rock, baby, just holding on, been like, I don't know where this thing's going next.
Well, I do know that some of the tests will show you the percentage of Neanderthal DNA you have.
12.
Like you can say, right, like
12%. That's
George the Animal Steel was probably 75% Neanderthal. But I'm wondering, when they're talking about this splitting, are the test able to show that I'm only 6% Neanderthal, but I'm 19% Denisovan?
I think it's going to get to that when they can add those markers in.
Right. And
because
how many
they talk about the updates that people get where you would think, well, that's it. We're like, it is it. But in reality, there's also branches of each individual branch. So they're finding more things in the DNA. We still should do it. We should still do it and see what we are.
And what if the traits start, they really recognize it and be like, well, you can't compete in this Division I college wrestling competition because you have too much Denisovan in you. You know what I mean? What if they start putting barriers on there? Or well, you're not really allowed to compete in track and field because
what if you're
incredibly good at sprinting?
Yeah, what if
unfair advantage?
They could break you down DNA-wise.
Why not?
And they already know they're going to use CRISPR to alter your genetics with it, where then that way everybody can run fast and jump high.
Right.
Yeah, that would be insane.
And then there's going to be other people that are going to look down upon other people. Be like, well, I don't like you because you've more Denisovan.
What's funny is I used to always dream about imagine it all being like bionic. Nobody ever thought about altering your cells. Nobody ever thought about being able to go in there and change the genetics. It was always like, you're going to look like you're part robot. They're going to put your brain in a robotic body. Well, why would they do that when they can build your physical body to be just what you want?
That's exactly right.
And then they put that body in like one of the Robotech suits. And now you're really getting it over there like super badass warriors.
This is the time of year where everybody is trying to diet. This is the time of year when everybody's trying to exercise.
I'm just paying my down payment to CRISPR so they can just do what they want to do.
That's what I'm saying. Just in a few more years, this is going to be a waste of time. You can just genetically create yourself to have ripped abs and giant pecs and everything else. What color eyes you want, whatever. I got purple eyes, baby. Yeah. They're not contacts. I changed it.
I want to be one of those. It'll get so easy to where you just do it at home. You have like an at-home CRISPR changing. You just plug in, type in a few things, and then your eye color changes. I need to put on some height. I think that old gal likes tall dudes. 6 inches, you grow overnight. Yeah, all right, I'm ready.
But when everybody can do that, will it mean that much to them? People will quit really liking a tall guy.
It will change.
Everybody will be tall.
It's because people are crazy. That's why.
Yeah,
we are completely crazy. Hey, look, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to discuss, like we said, our trip into Arizona, and we're going to discuss some more stuff about the Mogollon Monster, and I got a few little things here to kick around with y'all. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. All right, y'all, we are back. Before we go any further, I'm going to throw this out there because I was shocked whenever I found it, and I had to show it to Kyle. Do y'all remember whenever they had that highway video footage of what was believed to be a family of Bigfoot?
Yeah, I remember that.
Crossing the road.
It's like snowy out, and they were crossing.
We were about an hour and a half south of where that video was filmed.
Really?
Yeah, we were that close in that mountain area.
Good thing I didn't know that when I was trying to sleep.
Yeah, no joke, right? So we went up into the southern part of the Mogollon Rim, folks, into Arizona. And we had a good drive out there. It was fun. Everything. We had a good laughs and cut up and the whole thing. And like I said, dude, I enjoy those kind of trips anyway. But I was surprised at how rough that part of Arizona was. I was really shocked. I knew it was going to be in parts of with the Gila Mountain coming out of New Mexico, rolling over into that part of the south of all that stuff with the Mogollon Rim coming down in there. But so we worked our way up and went through the town of Duncan, and then through the town of Clifton, and then through the town of Morenci, and went through all the mines, and then worked our way up onto 191 and went north and cut up all through there and made our way up into the southern end of the Mogollon Rim. So it's cold, it's snowy, and it's rough as hell up there in that area. And like I said, I was surprised. I expected. Now, we did find some rolling hills areas and a few nice places to camp, and it was really great when we stayed out there because, of course, it was getting more to the full moon, which was fun to set out in the dark and glass in the full moon.
Yeah, no, it was really
freezing your butt off, thinking that you might see a monster through your binoculars at 800 yards. It was strange. It was like, we've never done that. Like, we've gone out and monkeyed around and whatnot in the dark around here and stuff like, but to actually go off somewhere and really spend time like that, it gets to be unnerving. Like, cause we're a good ways from anything. Like we were 9 miles back in on a 2-track and 3 miles from the road.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So once we parked, we hiked another 3 miles back in up on a ridge. And when you're sitting out there, and when I say not a 2-track, folks, is like a 2 tracks, like where the tires go, dirt road, and it's not maintained. Yeah. There's nothing. It's just kind of like enough guys have driven it to where it looks like a trail, and they're called 2 tracks. And so you come in on a non-maintained road, basically. It's a primitive road, and it's slightly maintained. And then you turn off of it and you 4x4, 7, 8, 9 miles back in the back on a 2-track till it quits, unload your gear, strap it all on your back, and start, drop your mark with your GPS and then start walking. And had an area we wanted to go, and we were actually going to go a couple of miles further, but the backside of the mesa that we got to was about 600 foot straight down. We were like, I don't think we're going to be able to get over this one, bro.
Yeah, there was a large river at the bottom, but you're right. It was a huge gorge that we originally couldn't see. It looked like rolling hills.
On the backside, yeah.
Only till you hiked 2 or 3 miles in do you realize there was a huge gorge in between those 2 hills, and we didn't feel like taking a fall because it would have been bad.
Yeah. Well, and where we went, we wanted to make sure that we kind of got away, not just from people, but away from any of the activities. So literally, like the 2-track that we chose, we'd found through our mapping systems. We went in there, we found it, and there had been nobody driving on it. So when we went back in there, we were like, this will be pretty good. And we kept going and going and going and going until it ended. And then, like I said, we walked back in. So if you give how far we went on the primitive road, and then with the added on there, so let's see, what would that be? There's 12. I would imagine, and then if you add on to the town, but we were probably 15 miles or better from anybody at that point while we were out there. But you add that on top of it, we were, what would that be? 40 miles almost. Yeah. That's like 38, 39 miles from town.
Yeah. At least.
At least back up in there. So we were back. We wanted to try to find spots that we could cover a lot of area, but that were fresh water and, not just water troughs, but like fresh natural water, where you could find a creek, something like that. And then it was also extremely remote and rugged, like a place where that somebody would go where nobody would mess around. Like if you stayed along that creek that Kyle was talking about off that ridge, nobody's going down there, because if you could rappel and work your way down there, first of all, there's nothing for it. It's not like you're going down there for awesome fishing or, none of this. And then you're going to have to get out. So unless you plan to go down there and stay, there's no reason to go. And that's one of those reasons that we started picking some of these crazy deep ravines. And then, like we said, we set up and start glassing, and you glass pretty much all day. You just look, and then it gets dark and we get a wild hare that, hey, look, the moon's out. Let's go hike up there and glass. And then it gets scary because you're sitting out in the cold, not speaking, and you can't have your lights on. Other than that, it just defeats everything. So you're just in the dark looking through binoculars.
Quiet. Eerily quiet. And that's what I kept thinking about. All the accounts I've read about how it's really quiet. That's what I kept experiencing. And there was one night when I was sleeping in my hammock, and I kept thinking like I heard footsteps, like stepping in the snow makes a certain sound. And I would peek my head up and I'd look around. It was pretty bright out because the moon was almost full. I didn't see anything. I'd lay down. Sure enough, I'd start hearing it again. And I'd peek my head. I must have done that 10 times till I realized it was my hair on my chin rubbing on my pullover.
On your top quilt?
On my top quilt that was making that sound. Because I was like, what in the hell is that sound?
I did it the last day, the same thing. Is I thought something was getting into my pack. I had it right under, had my tarp up, my hammock up, and I could hear something, and I'm like, something's getting in my pack. And of course, we're all packing heat, right? So I got my handgun, my Glock is locked back, and I'm laying in that hammock, and I'm like, what is that?
Why do you always keep your Glock locked back?
I stay strapped so I don't get clapped, player. So I'm chilling in that thing, and I'll turn my head to the right, and I can hear it. And I ease it back to the left, and and then I stop. There's no more sound, and I start stretching, and I hear it again. And
yeah, that's exactly what I was doing.
Until I realize it's my beard dragging on my puffy coat while I'm laying in that hammock.
Yeah.
Yes, folks, we were sleeping in hammocks, but they're not normal hammocks. They're actually backpacking, backcountry hammocks. They're made by a company called War Bonnet Outdoors out of Colorado. And then we have top quilts and under quilts, which imagine if you had a sleeping bag and you unzipped it.
By hammock gear, yeah.
Yeah, and you unzipped it, and then you put the bottom underneath your hammock, and it straps to it. Keeps you warm just like a quilt because it's the down and you pull it up tight, and then you have a top quilt you get under, and it's kind of like a little mummy bag with no back, and you snap it and pull it over your head, and you would be surprised. Like, what was it, in the 20s one night, 23, 24 up there in that little valley.
We got down to 14 one night, yeah.
Yeah, froze all the water, all that stuff. And, dude, we were toasty. I mean, now, of course, if the wind's blowing, you're going to be cold anyway, but you slap up your tarp that you put on over it, get it all going. Dude, it is jam up.
It's pretty nice. It
Sleep
wasn't
like a babe.
It wasn't as nice as the teepee we stayed in.
That's right.
A friend of Cam's let him borrow a teepee with a stove in it. Now, we've seen these online. We've watched videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
Never personally used it in the mountains in January in the middle of winter till this trip. So we set it up one day. And I'm telling you, if you're going to go camping in the winter in the mountains, the teepee with the stove is the way to go, because it was like 85 degrees in there.
There's a bunch of companies. I prefer Kifaru. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% Kifaru. You can get teepees. They make one called the Sawtooth. Are they expensive? Yeah, they're expensive. Are they lightweight? Yeah, they weigh less than your coat. And the whole tent is the whole stove is either stainless or titanium. And you pack that thing in there in a little bag, and it didn't weigh any more than mine did, my whole sleep system.
Yeah, no.
And literally, it's got a stove jack in the little teepee. You mount it. It's floorless, so that's why you can have a fire. And then it straps down and leaves a little gap of air along the bottom of it. And you can fire that thing up, and I bet we had it 70 degrees in that teepee.
Oh, I bet it was hotter than that. It was hot, it was chasing me out of there.
Yeah, we had to open up the door a few times and it's all just off, little wood. It's ideal. A hot tent is ideal if you're going to be out monkeying around in the wintertime.
So, right. So now having used that, and like you said, they're expensive.
Yeah.
And I've I've only camped in the winter in the mountains like 3 times in my entire life. If I was to go do it again, or I knew that I was going to be doing it often, I would definitely invest in that.
Yes.
I mean, it was a game changer.
And I'm a big fan of the hammocks because it's comfort. Like, you don't have to worry about a flat spot on the ground or rocks or cold or rolling off your pad or any of that. You do have to find 2 trees. That's the only thing. And I don't, you're not going to camp above.
You don't
a
have
tree
to
line.
find 2 trees. You can find a SUV and utility poles.
Yeah, we did stay in the desert one night, and we had to tie off to the roof rack of my Tahoe, and
because there's no trees.
There's no trees, and then tie off to a utility pole. So Kyle and I had parked it in the middle and had it coming over. Yeah,
I think you took a picture of it. I don't know if you posted it.
I did, and I'll have to find it. It was cold. It was very, very cold that night in the desert too.
It's one of those things where, we've talked about it, but it's cold and it sucks, but it's, for whatever reason, it sucks, but it's fun.
It's the fun kind of terrible.
Yeah.
It's
like packing in. I remember it was rough going up at a pretty high elevation. We were about 8,000 feet, and that pack is full. It probably weighs 40 pounds. I don't know.
Mine was 47.
Okay.
Mine was 47 pounds.
It doesn't sound like much, but you get an hour into it, dude, it's whipping your ass.
With a 30-degree incline, my hips were screaming. It lets you know how old 44 is, and it also lets you realize that you were born at sea level, bitch. You got no business being up there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was sucking, and I was enjoying the suck, but at the same time, it was fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, this sucks, but it's fun.
It's fun, yeah. We had a great time. But no, we didn't see anything, and we looked for,
as far as like
tall broken branches,
Sasquatch stuff. Yeah.
We looked for like the tree house, the way they make the little timbers and prop them all up. We looked for all of that stuff.
Footprints, man.
Footprints. The only thing I can say is that it was abnormally quiet, and I don't understand why.
I mean, hardly even any birds. Like, I would point it out, like, look, there's finally a bird. No planes. See, we live next to DFW.
Yeah.
Dallas Fort Worth International Airport. So there's always air traffic. We also live right next to Carswell Air Force Base, which is now a naval air station. So there's always stuff in the sky. Always.
Yeah, there's planes everywhere.
Man, this was like back when 9/11 happened and they suspended all flying. Yep. I mean, it was like eerily quiet.
Completely. Yeah. It was strange. It was very strange. But I can understand after being up there that there would be food. There's plenty of cattle out there. I would like to know if there's any. I mean, there was a few houses that we found at the end of those 2 tracks that are all off grid that people live at. Like, we were camped one night, and the people that lived in that place drove by, and waved and all that stuff as we went in, or as they went in rather. And so they're living back there where there's no electricity, there's no water. They bring it all in and live miles back in there. I'm wondering if there's ever been any sort of mutilation, and I don't mean cattle mutilation. I mean something that you could tell it wasn't a bear, wasn't a mountain lion. It wasn't something that you necessarily know. It was more of something like, yeah, cats don't do this, or
I would love to speak to him.
Yeah, I would like to know.
But you can't just walk up on a guy's property and start beating on the door out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, because you're probably not going to hold all your liquids by the time he's done.
But I would like to.
Especially Arizona, they all pack too.
I would like to ask those ranchers that we saw.
I'm very curious. Yeah, because I mean, we experienced some stuff up there that doesn't make sense. And the main thing is the silence. The silence and and of course the cool thing is if there's any big tracks, they're going to last for a while up there. It was awful dry. I mean, even in the wintertime, when it snows, and then of course, everyone in the winter or up north knows this. And then when it thaws, it's not necessarily like rain, where rain beats it down. It will degrade the track, but not like a rainstorm can degrade a track. So experiencing the quiet that we did, which was strange, but it was the no birds, the no small game. I mean, it literally was like everything had died off. Like it was, I mean, one night we heard coyotes in the distance, one evening. That was it. So the other times when we were way out there, no coyotes, we saw no rabbits, we saw no birds, we saw, I mean, nothing. And it's just very, very strange. But it also, you go back, it wasn't every area. So it makes me wonder if the area that we were in was the hot spot. And we didn't know that. That strange of not hearing anything, was because there's nothing in that area because of the Mogollon Monster, because of whatever might be there. So
what stood out to me was being in a new part of the world that I've never been to. I've been to Arizona before, but I flew into like Phoenix and Tempe, completely different area than where we were. This looked like the mountains,
Yeah.
We were in the mountains. But what stood out to me is we were glassing one morning and Cam thought he saw a large mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was certain of it for about 30 minutes. And then after watching it for a while, turned out it was a cow. But I'm not knocking Cam. This is a good example, though, of when people are in the woods and they think that they see something that's not really what it is. But in your mind, you're convinced. Like I saw.
And I've seen both a lot.
Right? So I think this is another thing where people think that they saw a Sasquatch, when in reality, it was a guy with like a dark coat on. It was just really far away or whatever.
I got my wife's dog outside right now and he's not happy.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah,
or
there's somebody or something out here close and he is not happy.
Or the same thing is like you're glassing something that's 1,500 yards away. If you see something like that, it becomes really difficult to judge size. That's why I'm always saying when people say they saw a Sasquatch and it had to be 9 feet tall, was it?
Yeah.
It's really hard to judge that when you're looking at something at distance.
Well, I can say 100% off of what you're talking about is we started this glassing. We were already set up before the sun before it was even daylight enough to see anything.
Spotting scopes.
Yeah. So the sun
tripods.
the moon's down and the sun's not up. So it's dark. And as it starts getting light before, of course, in the mountains, before the sun ever hits anything, the glow starts and you're waiting for the sun to actually shine light on the faces of these ridges so you can see what's there. And as the sun starts coming up, I notice a dark spot under a cedar tree. And this dark spot starts moving around. And I mean black, pitch black. Turns out, of course, it's a cow. And you can kind of make out it's an old cow. But then I see a lighter colored spot. And I would say, how far? 1.5 miles?
Yeah, it's far.
At least 1.5 miles, maybe. So I'm watching him through the binoculars, and I'm like, that's got to be a mule deer. Like it has.
And in your defense, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, when you told me where to look, there was a big bald spot.
Yeah,
I finally see it too, and I'm like, dude, I see it. I see exactly what you're talking about.
It's the right color. Everything seems the right. Well, as time, like Kyle said, time goes on. We watch it. Sun finally gets on it. This black spot gets up. It's an old cow. Goes over there, starts eating. Just an Angus, black Angus over there eating. Mills around for probably 5 minutes. And then the deer stands up. Of course, it turns out it's not. It's another cow. But what's odd is the whole time we've been out in here and we saw cows, all we ever saw was black Angus. But this is one time, looks like an old Charolais with them. So it's a different colored cow. And it
buckskin
goes
color for people that aren't familiar with Charolais.
It goes over and starts eating with that old Angus. And right then is like what Kyle's getting at is the assumption I had that every cow I was going to see was a black Angus led to me instantly going, that is a mule deer, because it's got 4 legs, it's laying down, and at 1.5 miles, it's hard to distinguish
and because
the size.
And you want to see a mule deer. That's what your brain, you're wanting to. So
Yeah,
it's like,
we're looking for wildlife. We're not looking for cows.
in your mind, it filled in the gap. Your brain filled in the gap and made you see antlers that weren't there.
Yep.
Made you see the white buttocks that didn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
And you don't realize till it gets up and moves out, and then it's the same size as the cow. You're like, oh.
And as the light changed, as the sun became higher, then it became obvious it was a cow. I think that the same...
like a lot brighter color. Like it wasn't as dark colored as we thought it was when the sun finally hit it.
That's my problem when people claim to see these things in the woods. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying that they believe what they saw. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what they saw.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm going to read y'all real quick a few Mogollon accounts. This one come from a little over a year ago. We come across, it says, did I encounter the Mogollon Monster? All right. Now, of course, there is several books written on it. Lon has a bunch of links to it. Y'all can find Mogollon stuff anywhere, but this is what it says. This summer, I spent a lot of time camping. I live in Arizona, so the best place to get out of the heat is in the Flagstaff area, also known as the Mogollon Rim. Now, my goal when finding a camping spot is to get far away from anyone. I bring everything I need, water, toilet paper, etc., so I can really just enjoy nature without the sounds of ATVs or other campers bothering me. I have a lifted SUV, so I can go where most people won't, and it helps to get the perfect spot. We picked the forest road near Ashurst Lake. Ashurst? I'm going with it.
Sure.
And drove over a rocky road for about an hour until we found a good spot by a dried up lake bed. It was tucked in the trees off the road, a beautiful spot. It had a well-worn game trail that went through it and across the dry lake bed. We saw a few wolves on the day we arrived and some deer or elk, but the wildlife seemed to avoid us after they saw humans were in their territory. During the day, I walked around collecting bones. I found quite a few from deer and elk. I was bored and feeling a bit morbid, so I made a wind chime out of the bones and hung it up outside of my tent like a creepy art project. I was laying in the tent that night, my dog, and so we were asleep, and I found myself awakened for some reason. Not sure if I had trouble sleeping or I'd heard a noise, but I definitely heard something now. There was no background noise, no owls, no crickets, nothing, except for the thing that was in my camp. It was slow, heavy steps in the tall grass right through our campsite. It was so slow, like one step every couple seconds, that it had to be bipedal. No shuffling, just crunch, crunch, crunch. We were miles from anyone. We only saw a few cross-country ATVs the whole trip, and they went back the way they came. No one else was out there. Then suddenly we have this bipedal creature walking through our campsite. Now, I had a pistol on the ground next to me, but I dared not even move. I didn't want to wake up my significant other, so I just laid there and waited, barely wanting to breathe, just seeing what would come next. It walked right by our tent, kept walking with its slow pace, the noise fading slowly as it wandered deep and deeper into the woods. Now, the next day, I told my significant other, and she wasn't happy. And at the time, I thought it was just a skinwalker or something along those lines, a magic humanoid who came to take a look. But today, I learned about the Mogollon Monster, which is essentially a Sasquatch who lives in the wilderness area around Flagstaff. Did I have a run-in with the famous Mogollon Monster, they ask? Good chance. There's a really good chance. Now, about 6 years ago, and in Payson, Arizona, this got reported on Cryptozoology News. It says a 28-year-old woman believes that she came across an unidentified animal Monday morning while hiking the Canyon Point Trail located in the region of the Mogollon Rim. Mrs. Estevez, a sociological student who claims that she was alone at the time of the incident, says she saw a troll-looking creature drinking from a pool of water.
A troll-looking
creature. Says it was on its knees drinking water when I found it. It was making noises like a pig, so at first sight the animal looked like a pig to me. She then reached for her digital camera inside her backpack, when the creature noticed her presence. Says, I tend to take pics of every animal I see on the trails, so this was no different to me. And like I said, I figured it was just a pig. Kind of hairy, though, which seemed a little odd for a hog. And as soon as I made a little noise, the animal turned its head and looked directly at me. Now that's when I freaked out, and it was staring at me. Estevez says that she began making herself look bigger to the creature. Just like what you do with cougars. They always tell you to make yourself look bigger and get very loud, and in theory, the animal will leave. So I start making noises and moving my arms up and down. The creature gets off of all four of its legs and stands on its hind legs. It had long hair, gray and bluish, and I swear it looked like one of those trolls from a fairy tale. Very ugly stuff. The face was human, or at least human looking. No hair on it, full of bumps. The eyes were kind of brown red, had a thick big nose, very small lips, and no expression on its face at all. It then took off running like a person. Now it goes on here to say that the locals describe the Mogollon Monster as a bipedal humanoid that lives on the plateau of the Mogollon Rim, which extends from Arizona into New Mexico. And it goes on here that they claim it's about 7 foot tall, and it's a hairless face, big red, what does it say? Yeah, big and long red eyes. Oh, it's got a long red eyes. I don't know what that is. And some claim it hunts small animals, even medium-sized animals, and leaves the carcasses next to bodies of water. So it goes on here to say that Estevez says, from now on, I will make sure that I don't hike alone, at least not around in that area. Now you jump forward another year or so, and in Sholo, Arizona.
Sholo,
Arizona. The headline reads, Mogollon Monster and giant rabbit blamed for electronic failures and harassment at trailer park. That's right, folks. I said it. Goes on to say that the author and Bigfoot researcher, as I'm looking at their name, researcher Mitchell Waite. Yep. Says that strange things are happening, but their cameras are not being able to capture these events due to electronic failure. Says he goes on to say that the cameras can only record a few seconds and it's not going to the SD card. And so he explains that he was trying to videotape these big claw-like marks and spatter on the shiny wall of a trailer. He says, but the equipment failures are just the beginning. Power outages, missing pets, strange lights, UFOs, and giant jackrabbits appear to be the common feature in this arid landscape. Goes on to say that neighbors are complaining about strange noises, growls, and barefoot human-like prints. I hear this trailer's been doing weird things. A black and white house cat's disappeared, and notice how the window cover's been broken on the right edge. We're looking for any kind of damage that wasn't there before. All this is being blamed on the Mogollon Monster. He himself is part of the Mogollon Monster website, says an online platform that his research team has been using to document their findings since 2007. He says, our mission is to study the monster. We study numbers, birth rates, social structure, diet, and why Bigfoot does what Bigfoot does. I'd like to talk to this fella because he already knows their birth rates, their social structure. Wow. Says apparently they spotted a giant jackrabbit, but claim when they attempted to capture it on video, again, Kyle, conveniently the camera malfunctioned.
Right. Just like with Epstein.
Yeah. So it goes, so here he goes again. So he goes on. So they're talking about a lot of this stuff about how they're trying to catch it. But you jump forward again, there's going to be a little bit more action. Now, which is strange, like we said before, that there's, I guess, maybe not as many sightings of the Mogollon Monster. Like, there's several, but not as many as you would think. And I still believe it's because of how hard it is to find them. Like how rough it is to get back there. But there's a fella spots another one in Strawberry, Arizona. So the man in central Arizona says he saw Bigfoot in the Coconino National Forest. Says he claims that he was in the USFS campground in the Mogollon Rim area when he spotted this thing. He said, I'd finished reading a book when I looked across the campground and noticed a very fast-moving dark figure heading from north to south. Now, this is back in 2016, June 26th. So he's out there in the summertime. He goes on to say that he initially believed the figure was a large kid on a bicycle because it was moving too fast. But he explains when he realized that he was looking at something unusual. It was a very large Bigfoot. Now, it only lasted about 3 seconds, and I was lucky to see it. He said that this thing was about 125 yards from him, and he was not able to identify any facial detail. Said it ran with a slight forward slant to its body. Its head did not bob up and down like a runner's head, like a human being would.
Right, yeah.
He said its coat was almost black with a slight reddish tint. And, of course, this got BFRO investigator Chuck Jacobs involved, and Jacobs said that 9 days after the incident, the depressions in the grass were still at the sighting spot. Jacobs goes on to say that it was not possible to get an accurate measurement of foot size, but the length of the stride was clearly longer than what a human could achieve. He went forward to add that he was able to estimate the height of the creature and set it at about 8 feet using the stride measurements. He said that would be standing erect. Jacobs determined that the figure couldn't have been a human being given the extremely large size of it, and that it moved faster than a human could run. And again, folks, this is back in the Mogollon Rim area. So we, like I said before, didn't really have anything crazy go down, but there have been crazy sightings in that area. Now, we ran across a few other campers, but we didn't get a chance to talk to them. I would like to, we're going to try to go back. We ought to go back in the summer. I would like to go back and to talk to some people and ask some questions in the towns there of Clifton and Morenci to see if any of them have had any experiences while they've been up in that area.
I wish there was a place that we could publicly post something like at in the town of Morenci and stuff to see if any of the locals, any of the miners have seen something interesting, and we could get their contact information and then interview them or whatever. Because I have a feeling that when we were there, there's not a whole lot to do. Like if you work in the mines there, the town's not real big. Population of like 1,400 people.
Was it by 8 o'clock? Everything's closed up.
I mean, there's a bowling alley.
Yeah.
But outside of that, so what I'm getting at is I think a lot of the people that live in that area, when they have time off, they do a lot of hiking.
Yes.
A lot of camping, backpacking, fishing, things like that. So and in an area like that, I'm assuming that there's probably been some crazy sightings, especially because we know about the Mogollon Monster, the Mogollon Rim.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you there's quite a few people. Now, whether they're willing to come forward and talk, I don't know, but I bet you they would. I wished I knew a way to get a hold of it. Like when we talk to people, it's almost always somebody who wrote a book, so we know that they're kind of into it. It really becomes difficult when you're trying to
break the ice,
go to an area and pull information from the town folk.
I think I have an idea. I'll talk to you a bit after we finish recording this, but I think I've got an idea of what we can do.
Okay.
I think we can get it going faster than we realize up there in that whole area. Okay. Let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to wrap it up. We got a few more things to discuss with y'all. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives. And we are back and going to wrap this baby up. So, we're going to, I would love to say I was going to video it, but to be honest, I took all the gear to video, and it was so heavy that I just didn't pack it in. So I'm like, no, it does. That's why I want to go back. I want to go back in the summer when it's cooler up there than it is here, but where it's not so cold. Because it was cold, and now I know, a little bit better on how to pack for videoing and all that stuff. But yeah, we took a bunch of photographs as best we could, but yeah, it was, it was just,
it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Like I said, going to a different part of the world than we've ever been. Taking equipment I've never used. It was a learning process.
This spring, we're going to go down to the Piney Woods and do a little videoing and doing a little research down there.
And also, there's a group of guys that we're in contact with that are supposed to take us up to Oklahoma.
Hope so.
Up there, like near the Wichita Mountains or something.
That would be awesome.
Area X, they call it. A secret location. But they claim a lot of activity. And for me, I just want to see it for myself. I want to know, because I know I flip-flop about this all the time. I want to go up there and see what these guys are seeing and then be able to judge it like, man, these guys are crazy. Or be like, no, they're on to something. I can't explain that.
And I'm hoping to learn something from any of those guys that do this research. At least, maybe like we talk about, and Kyle even brought up this episode, we were laughing. Him and I are both kind of oblivious to a lot of that stuff. Maybe there was things going on that we didn't know what to look for.
Right.
Maybe that silence is a telltale indicator. Maybe there was some things that we just weren't prepared for as far as that, because we're up there looking I know when I go looking, I'm looking for hard evidence. I'm looking for some kind of physical, there the creature is. There's some big tracks out in the middle of nowhere. Who would have known we were out here? Why would you be, hoaxing tracks out in the middle of nowhere? We never had that. So
as long as much as it might be unsettling, I would have loved to have been glassing across that valley and saw something walking across that rim. Wouldn't that have been cool? I might not. I wouldn't want to sleep out there.
No. Yeah, I wouldn't have been
go
able
get
to
a
pull
hotel
that
in
move.
Morenci.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to pull that move off.
But it would have been neat to see.
Safford or whatever. I had to go down there.
Yeah.
I had to blast off. Been like, dude, I am out of this joint. But no, we had a great time. We're glad. Hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's. Everybody stayed safe. Let's just keep plugging forward. We got all kinds of crazy stories. This year has got, I think, a book that Kyle and I are going to end up finally releasing now. We've been working on also too more video stuff, and also too some more interviews. We've got some cool people that we are going to be talking to coming up soon. So we have some really interesting stuff planned for 2020. And then also, like we talked about, some more actually in the field investigation on our own, of going out and trying to get better at looking into these kind of stuff for ourselves, and hopefully get better at filming it and trying to make good videos of it where people will enjoy seeing it too.
Yeah.
I got something I'm going to leave in closing with you folks, which is kind of interesting. We did not long ago, a few episodes back, we talked, we're talking about the hermits and the people that just choose to be back away from civilization. And we had this discussion while we were out in the middle of nowhere, but I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but there used to be someone that actually owned or tried to own a hermit. There was an English politician back in the day named Charles Hamilton, and he advertised that he would like to have a hermit live in the forest at Painshill Park in Surrey. Now, this is what the advertisement said: that you would be provided with a Bible, some glasses. He would give you a mat for your feet, I guess, like for you to walk around on, right? He would give you a hassock for a pillow and an hourglass for your timepiece. Water would be your drink, and food from the house. But you must always wear a camlet robe, and you must never, under any circumstance, cut your hair, your beard, or your nails. You're never allowed to stray beyond the limits of the grounds that Mr. Hamilton owns, and you cannot speak with any of the servants. So he was going to hire a hermit to live on his property.
But why? What was the reason?
Well, I'm assuming to try to make it just a little bit more strange. Like, oh, do you know that this guy's got a hermit that lives on his property? You got to talk about it. Now, get a load of this. At the time, he was going to pay them 700 guineas. Okay?
Okay.
Which I like chicken. I don't really like guineas. But so anyway, apparently it's more than $500,000 today was what it would have been worth. But there was a catch. That the guy that come to do it, to be the hermit, wouldn't get any of the money unless he followed every detail to a T. You had to follow
for
everything.
How long?
I'm assuming it was for a year, that he wanted you just to come live out there for a year like that.
I'd do that in a second.
Right?
Yeah.
Now get a load of this. They found a guy that said, all right, I'll do it. And he did it for 3 weeks. And then he got fired because he snuck down to the local pub, started having some tall boys. And that's where he got the boot.
Man. Yeah. Right? I don't understand why wanting to own a hermit.
I don't get the whole but it's one of those things, you're just going to hire him to make it more. I mean, like if you had a lot of land, like you would want a creepy guy to get people talking about it. Like, man, that place out there's got a creepy guy that lives
got a hobo just living out there. Just
hanging out there.
Huh. Very, very bizarre.
And I told you the dad joke, didn't I?
I told you. Run it by me.
How come you can't hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom?
Why?
Because the P is silent.
That's a good one.
You got to tell that to Luke.
That's a good one. Well, if you have any stories of your own you'd like to share with me and Cam, feel free to email us at expandedperspectives@yahoo.com. You can follow us on all forms of social media. Have a good week, everybody. For God's sakes, be careful. Till next time. Yep, go ahead.
And a big shout out, everybody in Australia. We're pulling for you guys. We hope nothing but the best. We're sorry for the fires.
Man, the whole continent is burning up, and there's these idiots setting fires on purpose.
Yeah, this isn't a good thing. So everybody pull together. Positive energy, positive vibes. Everybody focused down in Australia. Let's get this fire put out.
Right, till next time, I'm Freedom Filson. He's Cam Hill.
Peace, y'all.